everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing you another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I wanted to talk about TFT again and RNG again, which are both topics that I have talked about previously in the past, mostly RNG in terms of League of Legends and how that applies to things like critical strike chance and what drops from Zoe bubbles and that sort of a thing. I've talked about that previously, but now I wanted to talk about RNG and how it plays into teamfight tactics. Now, I know a lot of players are very, very frustrated with teamfight tactics and how the item system specifically works. A lot of players have kind of gotten used to the champion roles and just kind of realized, yeah, it's fine, you just have to kind of make it work. Sometimes you find the last champion that you need for the 3-tier, and sometimes they just never show up and you lose because you can't get that third Aurelion soul that you're looking for. But mostly it's the items, and players are really, really frustrated about it, and it does feel pretty bad when you're sitting on 2 items that you both got from the carousel by picking up champions, when an opponent has a 3 fully completed item Vayne that just shreds you because she's got all the items she needs to do well, and you're just kind of sitting there like, well, I have nothing. I have maybe a couple of items, and I can't even combine them because they give me something useless. That always feels bad. And it especially feels bad when the loot box pops out of the minion and you run over excitedly to get it and it's gold. And you're like, seriously, gold is all I'm going to get out of this. I'm not going to get anything else. Like, it feels like a slap in the face almost. Like, I almost would have preferred to have had no items at all than to maybe have gotten an item and whoops, nope, that's gold instead. Especially because it's almost always 1 gold and that doesn't feel like it's worth it at all in the early game because for the most part, you're just kind of buying what's available. Now, it does help you. I think the 1 gold does do a little bit more than players expect it to, but I'm not going to disagree that it does feel pretty bad when you get gold instead of an item. And players really want items to be standardized. They don't care about getting the same item every time, but they want to be able to get an item with some degree of consistency. So for example, every single round, let's say the first 3 rounds, you get an item, you're guaranteed at least 1 item, is what a lot of players want to happen. They want to be guaranteed, I get a certain number of drops every single game. And I understand the point, I really do. But at the same time, I want to offer up a few arguments for why I think Riot are shying away from item standardization and why I think it actually detracts overall from the skill expression in teamfight tactics. Now, to start with that first point, teamfight tactics is primarily balanceable and primarily shows skill expression because it's randomized. If everything was the same, if you had the same chance of being able to pull whatever champion you want, of being able to get whatever item you want, of generally being able to guarantee, I'm always going to see, if I get to a silver tier unit that I'm guaranteed to get a gold, or if I get 2 of a unit that I'm guaranteed to see the next one, or even to the extent of I'm guaranteed an item every single drop that I fight minions, at least 1 item every single drop that I fight minions, then players will always be able to build the ideal composition. There won't be an if, and, or but about it. They will always be able to basically do whatever they want. There is no randomness. There is no ability to say, well, I really wanted to go noble. It looked like it was open. Turns out it's not. I'm not seeing the champions I want, but wild is really starting to come up. There might be an opportunity here for me to sell off my nobles and go wild instead, and maybe that'll be a better composition. That's one of the skill parts of the game. That's one of the abilities for smart TFT players to realize, oh, hey, this is open, and what I'm trying to build, it totally isn't, so I can swap. So if everything is completely likely, then that part of the game is gone. That particular skilled aspect of the game is gone, and instead it's just going to be a lot of players making the same cookie cutter builds, doing the same things that they've seen some streamer, some YouTuber do because they can't be asked to figure out the strategy or in order to play around the RNG, right? If the RNG doesn't exist, that whole aspect of the game doesn't exist, and a lot of the skill in TFT goes down, because if you remember, most of TFT, there is no skill expression behind. You're not lining up skill shots, you're not last hitting minions, you're not rotating around a map. You are basically playing odds. You're looking at a hand of cards and saying, what of these cards can I afford to play? Which of these cards can I afford to pick up? And to a certain extent, okay, I got items, what can I do with them? Or I don't have items, how can I compensate for my lack of items instead? How can I balance my composition? Maybe instead of maybe in the carousel, I try to prioritize what few items I can get as opposed to going for champion upgrades, that sort of a thing. There's a lot more skill expression involved in that than just being able to sit around and say, oh, well, I didn't get the items I want, so this game is bad. The other thing is that the item pool isn't that deep, and maybe that's a problem that Riot can fix at a future date, but it's too easy to guarantee certain builds. Okay, I just have to make sure I get a recurve bow, and then in the next carousel, I just have to make sure I get let's say, a needlessly large rod, and I'm guaranteed that Rage Blade that I really want. It's not like this is a game where you're trying to stack together, for champions of course, you're trying to stack together multiple champions in order to make sure it works, and there's a little bit more you can do with that, right? There's a lot less of a guarantee that I can get to the tier 3 work that I'm trying to guarantee. Items though, that's not the case. I literally just need 2 items, both of which I can pick out for myself at a carousel if I'm able to get an early enough pick, and boom, I have that item that I want. So it's not like it's that hard to play around the item system. So if you guarantee item drops from a lot of people, you're also guaranteed some of the strongest and most degenerate builds. Spear of Shojin Pike, for example, is completely ridiculous, and the only reason I think that it hasn't completely taken over the game is because you can't guarantee that you can even get Spear of Shojin on Pike. Maybe the items that you do get never give you the components. Maybe you're never able to get an early enough pick to guarantee yourself the Tear of the Goddess and the BF Sword. That sort of a thing. So again, that's one of the parts that helps balance out the game and makes it a little bit more balanced than just always being able to get the same stuff every single time. And I think consistent item drops would do that. You'd know, I'm going to get an item drop on this wave, I'm going to get an item drop on the next wave, I'm going to get an item drop when I go to fight Krugs, so I probably will have it by that point. If you don't have random item drop, or if you do have random item drops, that's never a guarantee, and you kind of have to say to yourself, well, I might be able to play out the odds here, but I'm not sure, which means that maybe I don't want a Vayne, for example, because I can't get Rage Blade. Maybe I want to go for Sorcerers, because that'll be better. I don't necessarily know. I'm not a super hardcore TFT guy, but in general, that's kind of what I'm getting at, is that you have to kind of play the odds and figure out what you can do. A good, I think, example of what TFT is kind of getting at here is Magic the Gathering, actually. Especially Draft, which if you're not familiar with it at all, essentially every player sits down, they open a pack of cards, of 15 cards, and they only get to pick one out of that pack before they pass the pack. And you do this a couple different times, and essentially the goal is that, well, I thought red was open, but then in my second pack I just saw no red cards at all, everyone seems to be taking it, so I might have to drop over into blue instead. And in order to, so it's not necessarily RNG, you can kind of figure out what players at the table are doing, but TFT is similar, and that you kind of have to say, how can I make the RNG work in my favor, as opposed to just saying, well, RNG isn't in my favor, so I just lose the game. I think if that's your attitude, TFT is not the game for you. To be quite bluntly honest, I don't think TFT is the game for you if you essentially blame RNG for everything. I think the biggest thing has to be to say, how can I make this work, as opposed to, well, I got screwed by RNG. Does it feel bad to not get any items? Absolutely. I'm not gonna say that it doesn't feel bad to be sitting, again, like I said, across from a stacked Vayne with nothing and saying, well, I guess this is a loss. But TFT without sufficient RNG will not work as a skill-based game. It will be too easy, I think, to guarantee certain compositions, certain item builds, and in general, the sort of ranked ladder that Riot are trying to set up, the kind of play that they want out of TFT, basically won't exist. It won't be about skilled players. It'll essentially be about whomever can get the cookie-cutter build fastest. So those are just my kind of thoughts about TFT and especially item randomness. I know a lot of people are very upset with this current system and they've been screaming at Riot to standardize item drops. So let me know what you guys are thinking of this down in the comment section below, especially if you disagree. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts and maybe we can talk about it. If you enjoyed today's video, go ahead and leave a like. And if you really enjoyed today's video, consider subscribing. I upload a video like this every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. And if you're looking for more content from me, you can check out my blog, linked down in the description. I upload articles about League of Legends, competitive scene, professional scene, all sorts of stuff down there. So go ahead and take a look at that if you are so inclined. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later.